County Water District for Tuesday, November 9th, 2021. And let's go ahead and start with a roll call.
Director Muller.
Present.
Director Coverdale.
Here.
Director Michelson.
Here.
Vice President Feldman.
Here.
President Reynolds.
Yes, I'm here. All right, very good. Should we go to the Pledge of Allegiance? Denise has got the flag. Perfect.
Pledge allegiance.
Oh, look at all the flags. Well done, guys.
To the flag.
To the flag of the United States
of America. And to the
republic for which it stands,
one
nation,
under God,
indivisible,
with liberty
and justice for all.
Amen.
All right, thank you. We now would ask if there's any public comment. Do we have any public comment?
I've got
All
a
right.
public comment.
Please,
Okay.
Ken.
How come in a water shortage we get less water and have to pay more?
Yes, well, that's, there must be a clever response for that, but I don't have it. Sorry. Consent calendar. Does anybody have anything they want to remove from or discuss before we have the consent calendar? And I'll jump right in and say I reviewed the claims for this month and found them in order. Is there anybody, does anybody want to pull anything or discuss anything from the consent calendar?
I'm fine.
Okay, so saying we'd need a motion to adopt the consent calendar, and then we'll need a second.
I move that we adopt the consent calendar.
All right, Bob has moved that we adopt the consent calendar, and then we need a second. John is waving his hand. We'll take that as a second, and we need a roll call, please.
Director Muller.
Yes.
Director Coverdale.
Yes.
Director Michelson.
Yes.
Vice President Feldman.
Yes.
President Reynolds.
Yes. All right, excellent, thank you. We have a lot of material today, so I'm going to move right along. Meetings attended and director comments.
We attended the special meeting October 28th, 2021.
Yep, thank you. And just for the public record, that was on the long-range planning for the water district, and all board members and much of the staff were there for that. And Mary, that's the whole session's online, right? Available online for people to view?
Normally we don't post those, but we did record.
Oh,
so.
but we do have the material that was presented is
Right.
online.
We do have
That's
yes.
yeah. That would be a great way for the public to see that. Would be to look at the material from
Right.
that meeting. Thank you.
Yes.
That's what I meant to say. All right, perfect. Any other meetings attended or director's comment? Okay. Let's move on to general business. As I say, we got a lot to cover tonight. So this is the water line replacement.
Okay. I'll start. The water line replacement under Pillar Sue's Creek at Strawflower Village project is very important to the water district, and one that staff is very anxious to move forward on. We see this replacement as one of the district's highest priority projects to complete. So the existing 8-inch pipe crossing beneath the creek is one of two pipelines that serves the south of town. The existing pipeline is very old. Staff is even uncertain where the pipe is, and a break could cause some environmental issues. So when this project is completed, I believe that our staff will sleep a little bit more soundly at night. So in 2020, staff engaged WRA environmental consultants to complete the CEQA work for this project, and the 329-page document that can be found on our website is the result of this nearly 2-year effort. So I'm very pleased to welcome Dr. John Bass from WRA and John Sutter from EKI, who played a key role in this monumental effort and will provide an overview of the project and process. So just for background purposes, Dr. Bass is a senior open space planner and leads WRA's public access team. He has 20 years of experience in park master planning and preparing environmental compliance documents. He also holds a PhD in forest resource management from Oregon State University. So with that, I am going to turn the presentation over to Dr. Bass.
Well, thanks, Mary, and good evening, everybody. Let me share my screen here and we'll walk us through the presentation. Can you all see my screen now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, well, I'm going to kind of gloss through some of these first few slides here because Mary did a nice job of teeing up my presentation. So basically, we're here tonight, and the decision before the board is to decide whether or not to adopt the initial study mitigated negative declaration, otherwise known as the MND, and the Mitigation Monitoring Reporting Program, otherwise known as the MMRP, for the waterline replacement project under Pillarcitos Creek at Strawflower Village. And the location of the project is it's west of Highway 1. The project has a couple different areas. There's an area north of the creek. There's the creek itself, and then there's an area south of the creek. The north part of the project area is actually a parking lot behind the Safeway in the shopping center. On the south side of the project area is actually in Oak Avenue Park and along Pillarcitos Avenue. So this aerial photo here just gives you a little bit more perspective on the project. You can see on the north side, the Safeway parking lot and the location where the drilling rig would be located for horizontal directional drilling. Jonathan Sutter is going to talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. You can see the yellow dotted line here that shows the alignment of the new pipeline. And on the south side, you can see the location of the exit borehole. So this just gives you a little bit more of a detailed perspective of the project. And then this is what things look like on the ground, up close and and personal. This is the north side of Pillarcitos Creek and that parking lot behind Safeway. And then on the south side, Oak Avenue Park, that's actually where the exit borehole would be located. And that's the top photo there. And then the lower photo basically looks south along Pillarcitos Avenue. That's where the pipe segments would be basically put together and then pulled back through the exit borehole, across the creek to its point of origin on the north side of the project. And so horizontal directional drilling was considered the best option for the project. Environmentally, there at one point in time was a consideration of whether or not to put a new pipeline on the bridge, but doing the HDD technique would actually have less environmental impact and be easier to permit. So with that, I'll pause, and I think Jonathan's going to give us a little bit more detail on HDD, then I'll wrap up with some more CEQA milestones.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Pulling up my slides here. I think I need to switch. Yeah, so I won't, dwell on material that's already been presented. Mary did a great job of presenting the background of this project. I can just point out, so as Mary mentioned, this is just one of two connections that serve the southern part of the district, including downtown Half Moon Bay. This is, where it shows up on, this crossing shows up on the map. And then the other crossing was replaced using a very similar, the same construction method, HDD, in 2016. That was the El Granada final phase that got the pipeline off of Main Street Bridge. So again, the project description, it includes 470 linear feet of 10-inch nominal diameter, 8-inch inner diameter HDPE installed by horizontal directional drilling. And then there are small segments of open trench construction to connect the crossing on each side of the creek to the existing water mains. So I just wanted to give you a brief overview of horizontal directional drilling, just so you understand the process and some of the considerations that went into the ISMND that John prepared, some of the issues that arose. So the first step is really drilling the pilot bore, and that's drilled from the drill rig side here. Let's see if I can get a laser pointer. And that's drilled at a tangent, entry tangent, and then once it advances a certain length, it goes into a vertical curve, and then it flattens out to a horizontal section, vertical curve, exit tangent. The next stage is, and so that's really to just develop the pathway for the boring that meets the design. And the next stage is the reaming. Actually, I should advance my slides. I apologize. I have some nice pictures from that the 2016 project, the El Granada final phase. So this should look somewhat familiar to you. This again, yeah, the drill rig, the HDD drill rig. This is the pilot bore right here. So you can see it's a small, or about 3.5 inch drill drill head that advances along the bore path. The next stage is the reaming, and that is really to enlarge and prepare the borehole for the pipe pullback. So there are a couple, you can see there are a couple different types of reaming heads here, and they do multiple passes to enlarge the borehole to the size that's needed to install the pipe. And then the final phase is really assembling the pipe. So ideally you assemble the entire pipe above ground, and that, with HDPE pipe, you're fusing each segment of pipe. So you need a long, longitudinal staging area to do that. And then you pull the pipe back through the borehole in one shot. That way, you want to make sure you're doing it in one shot, so that the hole doesn't cave in. So there are a number of design considerations that go into HDD projects, especially ones that are going under sensitive areas, such as Dolorcitos Creek. So the first is really hydrofracture, and that's when, I'll talk about it in more detail, but it's when the drilling fluids find a pathway up to the surface. The next is pipe pullback stresses. So these are really, you design the geometry, those angles, and the size of the pipe, the thickness of the pipe, so that the pipe itself can withstand the stresses of installation and the forces imposed on it. And one other consideration for this project was settlement. We're crossing under twin sanitary sewer siphons right at the creek. So we wanted to make sure that there was minimal settlement below those sewer siphons. So that was one of the design considerations. And then, as I mentioned before, staging areas and site access is another consideration, especially that longitudinal area that you need to assemble the pipe. So I'll just focus on hydrofracture and the staging area, because those are items that were important for the environmental document. So as I mentioned, hydrofracture is really inadvertent release of drilling fluids from the borehole that make its way to the ground surface. And it occurs when the drilling fluid pressures exceed the strength of the surrounding soils. And yeah, it's a big concern in the areas that where a frag out could contaminate the riparian area, or could get into the riparian area and cause ecological damage or environmental damage. So this is actually the profile of the bore here, and I'm highlighting the area within the riparian zone. So that's really where we're focused on minimizing the risk of frack out. And so part of the design is really to develop these calculations to estimate the potential of hydrofracture, frack out. And there are a number of different models that you use. So we use the standard practice is really the Delft cavity expansion model to estimate the P max, which is basically the pressure that would cause a frac out to occur. And then you compare that to the Bingham plastic model that tells you the P min, or the pressure that's needed, the minimum pressure that's needed to install the boring, to advance the bore. And so based on this analysis, and our design, the geometry of the bore, we have shown that the risk of frac out is very low. And that's shown because the P max is considerably higher than the P min across that area of concern. But as John will mention, we have additional mitigation measures in place, such as a frac out plan to even ensure that if a frac out were to occur, that we're prepared to deal with it, or the contractor is. And lastly, I'll just show here, these are the planned staging areas. The staging area on the north of the creek is where the drill rig will be located, and all the equipment associated, the separation plant to recirculate the drilling fluids will be located there. And then on the south side is the HDD exit staging area, and then along Pilarcitos Ave is the HDD pipe laydown and where they will assemble the pipe. And the area here, we're ensuring that the contractor maintains access to the park during pretty much all operations and across the bridge, pretty much through all operations except for when the pipe is pulled back. So that, we also are ensuring that there's at least 20 feet of travel lane for emergency vehicles to pass by. I just wanted to give you guys a sense of the price tag. Our 100% design OPC comes in at $436,000 for this project, and we've included in that a 15% contingency and a 5% market uncertainty factor, because just because of the current situation. And that's the end of my slides. So I'll just hand it back to John, unless anyone has any questions now.
Mr. Chair, I have a couple of questions.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, one of them would be pretty simple, but have we been in communications? And I don't know if this is your area or not, or it's the other presenter, with the property owner of the north side, because we do know him and he is an acquaintance of ours. Number one question there on that. And I think he'll be very open. I'm hoping we're already crossed that bridge, literally. And the other one, back to the project itself, in which we all want high water flow, would that have an impact, excuse me, on the project itself? Let's hope for high water, but we want to make sure we get the pipe across too sometime soon. So those two little points. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I will address the first point. We are with reaching this hurdle of hopefully getting this approved tonight and then going to the coastal development, getting next step of coastal development permit. Part of that is also looking at, about acquiring the easements. We had been in communication when we did our interim project, in 2017. And so we are wanting to continue those conversations with the owner at the north. And then also we have been in communication with the city regarding getting an easement. So we have to go through the mechanics on that front.
If I may, Mr. Chair, Mary, there's new ownership since 2017 of that property. It's private.
Oh, this is after that. So yes,
okay.
It's with the existing owners. Yes.
The Musich family.
The Musich family, yes. So we intend to start those conversations again, reopen them soon.
Thank you. And the wet weather, heavy weather, Christian with staff or consultants.
John.
Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
Go ahead, Bob.
Mine is not so much a question of the adequacy of the design and the work that EKI and WRE did here in terms of their product, which in my view is really quite extensive and very well put together, very professional and very impressive. The size of this ISMNR, or MNI, whatever we, MND, is rather substantial, let me say. I have not ever seen anything since I've been on the board of this size. And maybe there have been others. And I was wondering, one, whether there have been other things like this, which we never saw the details of, because this is quite a piece of work. I mean, this is a significant effort taken over 2 years to do. And so there's an awful lot there, and an awful lot had to be done just to get approval on what is a short 450 feet of pipe. And so I'm impressed by the effort, the product, and the energy it must have taken to bring this off, or pull this off, because it's really something. Given this, and we go forward to get the permits, my next question is, do we do things like this going forward to have to finalize all the plans for building? And how long will that take to make this all happen? That was my second question. Because I'll approve this. I mean, I think this has got to be done. I'm just interested from now till closure, what timeframes are we talking about doing this? Go ahead.
I can just say we are, we believe that we can move forward rather quickly now after we get this approved, and then after we get our coastal development permit from the city. So we plan to hopefully get on the agenda with the Planning Commission in December. At the same time, we're looking to start the, going out to bid and working through the other mechanics of easements. So we would really like to do this in the early part of 2022.
Okay, no, I'm just trying to understand. I mean, all the pre-work was the time-consuming stuff, and I assume we've done others like this that have taken this much time and have been this voluminous. I just hadn't seen one like this before. Personally, thank you.
We've done two in the last, I'll just say in the last 6 years.
Okay.
Since I've been, we had the original one for the other Main Street Bridge project.
Okay.
WRA was involved in. So, and then there was one to be able to do the Hillercetus or the Canyon pipeline replacement with SFUC in 2018.
Okay. Well.
All right, thank you. Chris, could you go join us?
Yeah, thank you. So no, Bob, you're right. This has taken time. Time is money, and I see two major components here. I see environmental compliance and the engineering. Could you give, for the sake of the public, if anyone cares to know, the approximate cost of the CEQA compliance and then the engineering component? So these just numbers so that people understand how much we spend before we even break ground.
I would say the CEQA compliance part has been awarded in 3 separate contract amounts. I think we're probably up to around $100,000 to $120,000 for the CEQA component.
Okay,
that's not an exact amount, but probably that's probably pretty good in terms of order of magnitude.
No, that's all. That's all I'm looking for. And thank you. And then, Jonathan, do you want to answer your part?
Yeah, I think our scope included geotechnical, surveying, and then the engineering work. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think I don't have the number on top of my head, but it's probably around 100, maybe a little over 100, all things put together.
Okay, no, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but just, so short of $250,000 before we even go out to bid.
Sure, before we.
Plus or minus. And then, like Bob said, plenty of time. Okay, thank you. Thank you both.
Did anybody answer John Muller's question about inclement weather? I mean, I think it sounds to me like a spring project. Aren't there grading moratoriums till the end of April? But did anybody actually answer John's question?
And I don't think so.
Nope, I don't think so either. So, Director Mueller, was your question about high flows impacting construction or design? I guess I wasn't entirely clear on the nature of the question.
Yes, please. It's just a concern that we all need to be aware of on delays with project, because we want water coming down Pillar Cetus, but we want to move forward with this project as soon as possible too. And I think the public needs to know this.
Yeah, I think just in a general sense, I mean, there'll be environmental constraints in terms of construction during avoiding the wet weather season. So that generally takes care of the high flow issues. I don't know what would happen if we had a 100-year storm event in the middle of summer. I imagine there would be some kind of shutdown. I've not experienced that, but typically the regulatory agencies that oversee our work beyond the city of Half Moon Bay have prohibitions on wet weather construction.
Thank you.
Okay. If we don't have any further comments, we'd need a motion to accept this report.
Glenn, if I can just say, John Boss he has a couple more slides to complete his presentation.
Oh, my apologies.
That's okay. It'll only take about 5 minutes. Let me share my screen again. So basically, there's a few CEQA milestones I think it might be relevant to this discussion. So we publicly noticed the project, the public review draft MND being available in early September. Our public review period ran for 30 days, so it ended on October 5th. During that 30-day period, we only received 2 comments. We received a letter from the Coastal Commission and a letter from the City of Half Moon Bay. At the end of October, we revised the draft MND and created a final as well as a final MMRP. That MMRP includes 9 mitigation measures that basically would ensure impacts remain less than significant. Ultimately, it's the district's responsibility to ensure that the MMRP is implemented correctly. And then in terms of the nature of the comments received, the California Coastal Commission basically wrote a letter of support saying that they support the mitigation measures that would protect the creek and they support the project basically. City of Half Moon Bay's planner had multiple comments that basically fall into about 3 categories. One comment was we were referencing an outdated version of the local coastal plan. And this is because the coastal plan was updated and certified just this year. And so as we were working on this CEQA document over the last 2 years, we always referenced the older plan. Anyway, we've updated all the references. So that's how we addressed the first set of comments. The second comment pertained to some language that we had in the draft MND about talking about detours during construction. And the commenter pointed out that, well, we're talking about a dead end street, Oak Avenue. So detours don't make a lot of sense. So we changed the language in the final MND to basically say that the project would maintain a 20-foot road width during project construction. I think Jonathan had mentioned that during his part of the presentation. And then a third comment from the City of Half Moon Bay, the planner was concerned that some of our impact statements and mitigation measures basically needed more support. And he made that comment and referenced air quality, greenhouse gas emissions, noise, and biological resources. So we made some additional changes to the final M&D in regard to those topics. For air quality and greenhouse gas emissions, we clarified that this project is of such a size that it's really not going to cause any potentially significant impacts. And there's fairly clear guidance on what's called the Bay Area Air Quality Management District's website for how you can screen out small projects from having to do more rigorous analysis. So that's how we handled that topic. For noise, we originally had a mitigation measure, talking about maybe using sound barriers to reduce noise level by a particular amount. And the commenter pointed out that the city of Half Moon Bay does not have a quantifiable noise standard. Therefore, it didn't make a lot of sense to have a mitigation measure that involved putting up a sound wall. It's basically, the comment was, it's not really practical. So that part of the mitigation measure was removed from the final MND document. And then for biological resources, Jonathan talked about this a little bit, the whole concern about a frack out, that received a lot of attention and a lot of work throughout the project, but especially as we were finalizing this MND. So we added some more specific information about what would actually happen in terms of impacts to biological resources. In fact, a frack out would occur. And then we also tried to add some more measurable standards for how we would deal with responding to a frack out if it did occur. And I will point out that we had several conversations with the commenter from City of Half Moon Bay, and he's aware of these changes. We shared these changes with him just to make sure he was in support, and he is. So that seemed like a positive development to me. And that's all I have. Glad to answer whatever other questions that the board members might have at this point.
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, John.
A very quick question on my reading of the 177 pages here that we have in front of us. I didn't see anything about individuals without residency, to be politically correct, because that was a staging area for many, many years. And I didn't see anything in the mitigation there about removing individuals if had to be. If you were aware of that, I'm sure.
Yeah, so we do it, every CCWD document has a section on public services, and basically it asks the question, it's kind of a two-part question. It asks whether a project would require more police response or more fire department response. And if it does, would it require so much more police response to deal with transient individuals or whatever that it would cause that entity, that law enforcement entity, to have to build a facility to have more staff and then have environmental impacts on its own. So it's sort of a two-part question. We never got to the specifics, to be honest with you, of dealing with transient populations, but our general comment was this project would have less than significant impacts on public services, simply because whatever would happen wouldn't cause you to build a new police station or a new fire station in Half Moon Bay.
They have hotels for them.
So,
All right. Bob, you have a question? Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
we have followed due process on this project in preparing and delivering documents to be reviewed by the appropriate authorities for their comments, which they have delivered and which we have responded to appropriately. So from a legal perspective, and I'm sure Pat would tell us if we weren't whole on this, we are whole to be able to vote on this, go for it, and then move forward. Is that correct?
Correct.
Pat's smiling and nodding.
All right. Thank you, Pat.
Okay.
All right. Ken, go ahead with your question.
I'd like to move that we approve the water line replacement pillar Cedos Creek at Strawflower Village project, the initial study, mitigated negative declaration, and mitigation monitoring and reporting program.
All right. Thank you, Ken. Bob, do you want to second
I'll
it?
second it.
All right. So Denise, that'll take us.
Sorry to interrupt. Just to clarify, this is a motion to approve the resolution number 2021-07, which does all of the things that was included in the motion.
Yes.
Got it. Yep. Okay. Thank you. All right. Denise, we'll take a roll call.
Director Muller,
Yes.
Director Coverdale,
Yes.
Director Michelson,
Yes.
Vice President Feldman,
Yes.
President Reynolds.
Yes. All right. Thank you very much. It's an important milestone in making our water system more reliable and sustainable in the future. So I thank the staff for their effort on getting this moved forward. Thank you. Our next item up for consideration is to consider and reaffirm the resolution on making findings pursuant to an Assembly Bill that has to do with our meetings, and our proclaimed state of emergency continues to impact the ability to meet safely in person. So Mary, why don't you explain the mandatory issuing of Kleenex by the,
So on September 16th, the governor signed Assembly Bill 361 into law, allowing legislative bodies to continue to meet remotely during a proclaimed state of emergency after September 30th. To help protect against the spread of COVID-19 and to protect the health and safety of the public. So at the October 2021 board meeting, the board adopted Resolution 2021-06, making findings pursuant to AB 361 that the proclaimed state of emergency continues to impact the ability to meet safely in person. And so per AB 361, the board will need to consider and reaffirm the findings of Resolution 2021-06 monthly. So staff recommends that the board reaffirm by motion Resolution 2021-06 and find the state of emergency continues to directly impact the ability of the members to meet safely in person, and state or local officials continue to impose or recommend measures to promote social distancing.
I have a technical question.
Go ahead, Bob.
Given that we will be doing this monthly, I believe, going forward until there's a change to the governor's resolution, is it possible to put this in the consent calendar as an ongoing item until such time as it's no longer valid and we don't put it in there anymore? So we don't have to go over it every week, every month, I'm sorry, and go through all the overview here. I'm just asking.
Yeah, good idea.
I would agree. Patrick, that sounds like a question for you.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think my recommendation to Mary was to put this one on the action calendar because we're supposed to take a look at the findings that were made in that resolution each month and make a determination that they still exist. I think Mary and I will be looking at kind of what's going on and in the COVID world to make sure that there's still recommendations that would make this appropriate. But I think that it would be safer for the board to just take a fresh look at this, say, yes, we agree, or no, we don't, could be a conclusion, and then take an action on that. So that would be my recommendation. Could you put it on the consent calendar? Probably. I think it's safer to look at it fresh every month.
I agree.
Okay. Does Ken, you have a comment on it?
Yeah, well, I mean, up in Marin County, those people get together inside without masks. And so I think that things have changed radically and we've got a new walkway, and I think we ought to get in the boardroom. If we need to be socially distanced in the boardroom, I think we ought to do that. But that's my strong feeling. I'm fine with, approving it and continuing to Zoom, but it just seems like we have a better exchange and, it's nice to have the contact. That's just my feeling about it.
Chris, any comments?
Oh, I would absolutely agree. I think we all went through the process. We've all done our part. We all got doubled, and I'm already triple vaccinated. And, I think if we can't get together now, when will we ever be able to get together? So I'm all for, like you say, it's nice to see everybody before and after the meetings, and I can't wait to get back to the boardroom.
Any other board members? All right.
I have no problem with in-person sessions if that's the wish of the board. Are we able to do that with the construction zone out in front? Is that almost taken care of, Mary? And are we still closed, for business, et cetera? That's all part of the ambience, I guess, is that the office is still not open. So I guess we could do it even if it isn't. But I'm just, in general, where we stand.
Well, a couple things, if I may say, we're kind of in the last phase of the construction. We are in the process of getting a window in the boardroom so we can improve the ventilation. So we hope to get that done sometime in December, I think is the game plan. So the other piece, so it is, right now, San Mateo County still has a mask mandate. So we do have to consider that as well. So. Yep.
And I'll make a comment. My wife works COVID, and I'm pay attention to it because it's my 6:30 briefing every morning, 7 days a week, and it has been for the past 2 years. If we were going to meet inside, I'd want a vaccine mandate that folks who show up are vaccinated. And I appreciate Chris's comment that most of us are, but then this is supposed to be a public meeting. And so I think that brings in an extra layer of complexity to this that I think we'd have to be careful about. And it may be easier to be less controversial and open to the public via Zoom than it is inside a not a great ventilated room. So I'd like us to continue for at least next month on Zoom and kind of assess it on a month-by-month basis. But we're not out of the woods yet from the healthcare point of view. All right, what do you want to do with it? Go ahead, John.
I would reaffirm by motion Resolution 2021-06, making findings pursuant to Assembly Bill 361 that the proclaimed state of emergency continues to impact the ability to meet safely in person.
All right, that's a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Bob. Denise, can we get a roll call, please?
Director Muller,
Yes.
Director Coverdale,
Yes.
Director Michelson,
Yes.
Vice President Feldman,
Yes.
President Reynolds.
Yes. Thank you. And I do think that the board is correct that we do a much better, it is a part of our mission to meet with the public and be a public meeting group. And I think we all feel that we work better in public, and I think we should continue to strive towards that goal.
Well, we consider and reaffirm this each month. We can look at things and see what's new.
Absolutely.
Talk about what the options are.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. We have Kathleen up for a water shortage discussion.
Okay.
Go, Kathleen.
Good evening. Steve Ritchie, he's the Assistant General Manager for San Francisco Water, gave the wholesale customers an update on November 4th regarding the status of the regional water system and the proposed water shortage emergency declaration. So some good news that he shared with us was that curtailments on the Tuolumne River have been suspended due to the recent storms. So that means that SFPUC has access to the water bank, which obviously makes more water available to the regional water system. So that was very good news. The other good news he shared with us was that demand on the regional water system has declined since the October storms, probably a result from irrigation systems being turned off. And this is reflected in the graph that I have on page 4 of my staff report. That's a graph that Steve Ritchie shared with the wholesalers. It shows the drop in water deliveries. It's the green line that they've outlined at 163 million gallons per day, and that was at the end of October. So some other news was that the SFPUC's proposed declaration of a water shortage emergency was rescheduled from November 9th to November 23rd. So that's been delayed a little bit. And he also shared with us that initially that they've been using fiscal year 2020 as the base year for water supply the emergency regulations or declaration. But Steve Ritchie mentioned that they haven't ruled out looking at other years. So it's possible that that base year could change in their final staff report. So we'll have to, watch that carefully. And district staff does intend to attend the virtual meeting for the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission meeting, where they'll be discussing this proposed water shortage declaration. So also in my staff report, I included in attachment A, water savings summary. During the last board meeting, there was interest from board members to have something in the board packet that had a summary of our water savings to date for this drought. So attachment A is an example of what might be included in the board packet once SFPUC determines the conditions of its water shortage emergency. So we would need to know the base year and things like that, and the exact, our allocation and what the percent shortage rationing they would be asking for. And then attachment B in my staff report just provides the kind of a summary of our outreach efforts and some examples of recent advertisements that we've had. So I'm available for any questions you may have regarding the staff report.
Go ahead, Ken.
On the executive summary, Kathleen, and thank you very much for the reporting approach on water savings. I thought it looked great. Interesting to see the change from one year to the next. On table 1-2 in the executive summary, I didn't know if that was us or if that was an example, but it said all customer classes, the baseline for us is, I guess, 815, is that million gallons?
I guess I'm not sure what you're referring to. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, the top of the report I'm looking at is, I think it must be something that was given to us. It's the executive summary of the water shortage contingency stage rate study report for Coastside County Water District. And there was under item 1.
That's I think our next agenda item. That's not part of it.
I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead.
You're jumping ahead a little bit, but
okay.
Yeah.
I'll hit the brakes, sorry.
Other comments? All right. Seeing no other comments, we'll move forward. Thank you, Kathleen.
Welcome.
Good job, yeah.
All right, our next item is a review of the draft water shortage contingency stage rate study and proposed amendment to the district rate and fee schedule to add water shortage contingency stage rates consistent with the 2020 water shortage contingency plan and San Francisco Public Utility pass-through wholesale water shortage rates or surcharges. And item 2, schedule a public hearing on the proposed amendment to the district's rate and fee schedule to added water shortage contingency stage rates and San Francisco Public Utilities Commission pass-through wholesale water shortage rates or surcharges, and authorize issuance of a notice of public hearing.
Okay. Sorry for the huge mouthful.
Do you need a ventilator?
Yes. Whoops.
Mr. Chair.
What's up, John?
Before Mary gets started, I think we should mention that we do have an addendum, a change to this agenda item. Is that correct, legal counsel? This has to be announced.
Yeah, there. We had an updated staff report, and included with it, we had an update to the Raftellus report. That was largely cosmetic, but they gave us a new report. We also updated page 3 of our draft Prop 218 notice. And then there was a change in the staff report when we talk about SFPUC pass-through wholesale water shortage rates. It's correct on the website, but on the printed copies, it's not correct. What we're saying is the district may pass through rates versus will. So I will talk about those later, but but we did make some changes, and we have an update on the website.
Thank you. I have it in front of me.
Okay. Oh, okay. So wanted to go back to last summer. The staff engaged Raftellus financial consultants to model what we were then calling drought rates for the district. At the September 14th board meeting, Sanjay Gar and Nancy Fan of Raftellus led a discussion on drought rates. But really, after we, started regrouping, we realized really in concept, water shortage rates would apply to any water shortage. So it's not just specific to drought rates. And the water shortage contingency plan is actually, it applies to any water shortage. So we decided to change the title to water shortage contingency stage rates, as the rates actually, as the proposed rates correspond to the district's water shortage contingency plan. So what are water shortage contingency stage rates? Well, given Proposition 218 requirements, water shortage contingency stage rates are designed to recover lost revenue due to reduction in water usage and differences in water purchase costs. They are also, their surcharges tied to specific water shortage stages. Excuse my light going off, as defined by the district's water shortage contingency plan. So, and then they're designed to provide financial flexibility for the district in implementing the appropriate stage rates. So on this page, you can see a listing of the 6 stages of water shortages. So that show up in our water shortage contingency plan. So the idea is if we have a reduction in our water usage, we will have reduced revenue coming in, and our costs are largely fixed. So that's where I'm going to the key, these stage rates are, they enable the district to maintain financial stability. And, with the district's costs, since the district's costs are primarily fixed and do not go down when water revenue goes down. The point with these rates, they're not automatic. So inclusion into our rate schedule doesn't mean that they automatically go into effect. What would need to happen is that the board would need to decide whether or not to implement the rates once the water shortage contingency plan has been activated. The rates are the maximum that may be charged in the water shortage declared stage, and the board may choose to implement a lower or no stage rates, or use reserves or defer capital projects, or a combination of strategies to make up for lost revenue. And these are calculated using our cost of service analysis, originally computed in 2018 and updated in 2020 in our water financial plan and rate update report. So this is a table that you saw in September. And the top section actually shows the what happens in each of the stages. So the target reductions, like for change with each stage. So we have the 10, 20, 30%. But as we get to these reductions, then you start seeing the impact to our revenue and costs. So what would happen, for example, given the calculations with our rate model, we, in stage 3, if all of our customers reduce their water usage by 30%, we could see a budget shortfall of $4 million. So these rates, the idea with these rates are to be a bridge to help us manage those reductions, given the reduced revenue. The other piece of the rates is that back in September, we discussed with Raftellus about what models we could use to in developing these water shortage contingency stage rates. So we looked at the possibilities of, you could go uniform quantity charge. So all customers would get the same charge per unit of water in a drought. We could go with the uniform percentage, where we would apply the overall percentage to each of our various rate classes and tiers, or we could just apply a monthly fixed meter charge. The board discussed the options and basically directed Raftellus to utilize the uniform percentage methodology, which actually, as the chart shows, the advantages are that you can change our customers are able to change their bill, and it targets use. And it has targeted use and conservation. The methodology promotes affordability. So, as opposed to the other methodologies. So, on this slide, you see what the rates would be at various stages. So the top section of this chart shows the incremental cost per unit for the different rates. We start off, though, however, with baseline. So baseline, and it's basically what would be, where we are today if we didn't have a drought, and then the various stages represent the rate, the stages in our water shortage contingency plan. So like stage 2, for example, is in the 20% reduction range. Stage 3 is 30%. So what happens is that the bottom portion of the chart shows what the combined rate would be. So it'd be the combination of our rate that is in effect now, or actually at 1/1/2022. So this baseline column shows what our rates are in January 2022, and then added to the rate would be the incremental rate for the water shortage contingency rate. So, for example, tier 1. You start off with 1014, you add 401, and you get 1415. So would be the cost per unit.
It's not clear on that slide that the bottom list that is below combined rates is the baseline rate,
Sorry?
the baseline effective. It doesn't say baseline rate, basically, so you're adding them together. I understand. I'm not sure how it is in your Prop 218 notification, but it needs to be clearly or more clearly identified. I think that's all. I understood it, but others may not. Okay, thank you.
We can, for future presentations, we can label these things better, so.
That's,
So on this slide, we show the bill impacts of the water shortage contingency stage rates. And we're using a typical residential customer who would normally use 7 units per month. So in the first chart shows what would happen in stage 2 when we're asking for a 20% reduction. If the first column is what the customer would use baseline, not in a water shortage contingency situation. So with 7 units, the customer would pay $116.92. If we go to a stage 2 stage, we would, which is asking for about, the impact would be about 21% reduction in water use. The customer would have a bill of $120.14, but if the customer did not cut back, they'd have a $151 bill, basically. And in a stage 3 drought, you see the situation of if the customer cuts back, they'll have pretty much an equivalent bill to what they would have in normal situation. But if they did not cut back the 30%, they would see around $165 bill. So the premise behind the design of the rates is that we wanted to get as close as possible to for the customer to have the same or similar bill to what it would be what they would normally be paying, for example, in a non-drought situation versus what they would be paying in a situation where they had to cut back. The other item we have included is an SFPUC pass-through wholesale water rate or surcharge. So if we don't know what San Francisco is going to do, so it's not clear right now, but what we wanted to provide for is if SFPUC implements an additional unit wholesale rate or surcharge to the cost of water as a result of the water shortage, the district may pass through this SFPUC per unit charge. And this pass-through rate will be a direct proportion of how much SFPUC water is purchased to meet demand versus how much water is locally sourced. So for an example, if SFPUC passes along 50 cents per unit in a water shortage, the district is using 90% water from SFPUC and 10% from local sources. The 90% factor would be applied to the 50 cents, so we would have a 45 cent pass-through charge. Again, this would be discretionary, and the board would need to decide if they would want to move forward with a pass-through rate.
Mary, in your opinion, it would be much more than 50 cents per unit, wouldn't it? I mean, just thinking about it logically. Is there a logic that it would be 50 cents a unit?
Well, 50 cents per unit it would be roughly, it'd be roughly a little over 10% and 15% of what their current rate is. They're at, without the discount, they're at 410.
So that seems reasonable.
Yeah, although I don't, this is just an example for
Well,
purposes of explaining this.
yeah. Well, that was my question was, is it a good example? Is it, you know, within the range? And if it is, that's great. I just don't know.
Yeah.
So if really we need to be talking about $5 and not 50 cents, that's probably important to do earlier rather than later. That's all I was.
And we don't know what SFPUC is going to do. They
Right.
don't have these kind of rates defined at this point in time.
Right.
This one is a quantity charge, is that correct?
Right, it's
It
a
would be.
quantity
It's not a
charge.
percentage-based charge. It's not based on, no, it's a quantity-based charge, but there's no way around that at this point based on the way this works. Okay.
I just wondered if we needed to use a real number. I mean, it could just be a rate increase of X, and we would only have 90% of X be the number and not
We don't know.
use the number, not set a, but it may not be important. I just thought.
I think it's a good example.
Yeah.
As you can know. Okay.
Well, if I may at this time, Mr. Chair, have a comment.
Go ahead, John.
And it would be on the back page of the staff report there of this agenda item. And I think that second paragraph is very important for everyone to understand. The purpose of the water shortage contingency stage rates is strictly financial to enable the district to maintain financial stability. And I think we have to share that with as many of our customers as we can. This is not just something we're throwing out in space. This is something to keep this district solvent.
Yeah.
And okay, that was one of my comments. Thank you. And there's a part about the California Constitution in there also that was quite interesting to read. So we could get the pages numbered a little better next time. Okay, thank you.
Glenn, please.
Yeah. We still got more on this or?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Chris. Yeah.
It's a public hearing.
Yeah, you know, as this is a pass-through of an unknown amount, we need to keep the pass-through wide open in that this will help keep us, like John said, solvent. We have capital improvement projects that need to be funded. We are unfortunately a pass-through agency, and that's why I asked the question earlier, you know, how much did CEQA compliance cost? Because all these costs do get passed through to the customers because we still have the day-to-day management of a water district to fund. So undefined number, we need to keep the pass-through open. Those are my feelings. Thank you.
Excellent. I don't have everybody on my screen. Anybody else got a comment? All right. I think it is important to note that we're not authorizing a specific rate increase now. We're putting in place the concept that if there's a shortage and we need flexibility to do something during a shortage. And I think most of our constituents would understand that. All right.
Well, I think that's a good spot at this point, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yep.
Try to get a latte, which I don't do very often, but it's $5 for a cup of latte. And we're worried about pricing our amazing infrastructure for water, safe drinking water. I mean, come on, we got to be realistic in providing this business.
Yep. Excellent. I think our next step then is scheduling a public hearing on proposed amendment.
You're correct, Mr. Chair, in my opinion.
Yep.
Could I go back, Mary, were you actually finished with your presentation?
Well, I was going to just show the draft Prop 218 notice. So,
Oh, good. Thank you.
so I can show
Yep.
that. Yeah. So in the on the last 3 pages of your board package, you'll see the draft, a draft 218 notice that we would propose to mail out on November 15th, assuming that we would like to schedule a public hearing to be held on January 11th, 2022. So if does anybody have any questions on the 218 notice?
Not I. Anybody else?
Glenn, I just had a question on back to that table 1, 2, the estimated water sales by stage in the executive summary.
Okay, let me go.
It's a table that shows water usage, all customer classes, and then % reduction from the baseline.
Yes.
Is that page 3 of this public hearing thing? Is that what you, can you show
Yes,
that?
page 3.
Page 3.
Page 3 of this.
Yeah,
So I think what Ken's asking for, I'm not sure.
No,
Is that page 3?
it's page 3 of the actual Raftellus report.
yeah, the executive
okay,
summary.
You also show it here in the,
Let me see if I can probably pull this up. Let me.
So it's, you probably don't really have to pull it up. It's just when we put all customer classes, the baseline we had was 815,000. I'm assuming that's millions of gallons.
That's cubic feet.
Okay, cubic feet.
100 cubic feet.
Okay, 100 cubic feet. And as we go through each of the stages, it shows those numbers going down. So my only question was, where did the 815,100 cubic feet come from? Is that our allocation from SFPUC? Is that based on historic water use? Is that the water use that SFPUC is going to use as our baseline use to reduce from? Or is that just some number from outer space? I just didn't know where it came from.
It wasn't from outer space, but I mean, Mary could go into more detail about this, but we had to pick a baseline. So we picked the same baseline that was used in the rate study, the original rate study. So I believe it's like 610 million gallons.
Yeah, correct. 610 million gallons.
Oh, okay, so that equals 610 million gallons.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Okay, thank you very much. Sorry to be confused with that, but thank you.
Mary?
Yes.
218 notice has 3 pages, right?
Right.
Okay, and the 3rd page. You should number them perhaps,
Yeah, well, we will.
so that people know that there's 3 and it's page 1 and 2 right there.
Okay.
Bob and I are on the same page there. We need them numbered.
I mean, the notice of public hearing, in my opinion, having seen many of them in the past, has a lot in it that's a little different for people to digest. And so I'm thinking this may be an interesting notification when they get it in terms of seeing and understanding. And it looks good to me. I mean, if you go through it carefully, it all makes sense. And I think it's the best you could do under the circumstance. However, I think it's going to be an interesting missive to the community in general at this point. That's about all I can say. You may get some response on that one when you put it up.
All right. So we good with the schedule?
January 11th.
All right. We ready to?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, on this item, this was strictly a recommendation of the, I tabulated 26 pages on this agenda item. And so I think with staff's recommendation, it's just a recommendation. It's not a motion to schedule that meeting. Is that correct, legal staff?
No, would recommend that the board by motion schedule a public hearing for Tuesday, January 11th.
Yeah, that's fair.
And, the second paragraph of the recommendation, somebody should take that motion.
And
I'd like to move we schedule a public hearing for Tuesday, January 11th, 2022 at the regular Board of Directors meeting starting at 7:00 p.m., possibly at our headquarters on Main Street, on the proposed amendment to the rate and fees to add water shortage contingency stage rates, PUC pass-through wholesale water shortage rates or surcharges, and authorize the issuance of a notice of public hearing. Exhibit B.
second that.
All right, so Ken has made a motion and John has seconded it. Denise, we'd lead you to give us a roll call, please.
President Reynolds,
Yes, I'll say aye.
Vice President Feldman,
Yes,
Director Michelson,
Yes.
Director Coverdale,
Yes.
Director Muller.
Yes.
All right, very good.
well, good.
Thank you. All right. Our next item is the consider of approval of resolution 21-08 declaring intention to reimburse expenditures from the proceeds of tax exempt obligations. All right, Mary, you want to walk us through how we could pay our bills?
Yes. So staff has started discussions with potential lenders and financial advisors on obtaining financing for the Nunes water treatment plant upgrade project. So since the project is already under construction, staff has been advised to pass a resolution that will enable the district to set a look-back date of when costs can be reimbursed on the project from debt proceeds. So by passing this resolution this evening, we could submit costs incurred after September 9th, 2021, regardless of when we obtained financing. So maybe it might be several months before we can obtain financing, but we can go back to September with passing this resolution. And I will note that the format of the resolution was prepared by the bond counsel who assisted the district in 2018 with the refunding of the 2006 bond obligation. So, any questions?
Do we have any board members who have a question?
That
Seems
would
like-
mean
Go ahead, Bob.
this would be effective if we okay it today.
Yep.
Be effective September 9th. Anything incurred after that. So it would be period from 19 August when we began, wherever we began, till the 9th would not be able to be covered. But I mean, that's what the nature of this means.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we didn't have that many costs in that month time
Okay.
frame.
We didn't have a lot anyway, so no, it's a good deal. This is, yeah.
It seems like a good idea. I wasn't able to see any downside to doing this.
Nope.
Okay.
Good fun.
If does anybody on the team want to put forward a motion?
We
I move
approve.
that we consider approval of resolution 2021-08, declaring intention to reimburse expenditures from the proceeds of tax exempt obligations.
Bob, thank you. We'll put that down as a motion. And then Ken, did you want to second that? Thank you. All right. So we have Bob with a motion, Ken with a second, and Denise with a roll call.
Director Muller,
Aye.
Director Coverdale,
Yes.
and Director Michelson,
Yes.
Vice President Feldman,
Yes.
President Reynolds.
Yes. Thank you. All right. Now, the next one is the award of contract for the installation of energy efficient LED lights. I've gone online and I've looked up a whole series of jokes on how many people it takes to put in a light bulb, but I wasn't able to find one where it costs $47,890.82 to install a light bulb. But clearly in this case, it's going to take 5 board members, well, no, 3 board members to install a light bulb, with the other 2 on the fence. So this is really going to be exciting. We will find out how many board members it takes to put in a light bulb. Mary, you want to lead us off?
I'm going to turn this over to James.
Darn, I was just getting on a roll there. Go, James.
Thank you very much. Staff's always looking for ways to do our job safer and more efficiently and save money. So we approached PG&E about some lighting upgrades and if there would be some rebate money, and they came up with some on-bill financing. We're looking at the compact fluorescent light fixtures at the Nunez facility, Crystal Springs Pump Station, Denniston Pump Station, and the Denniston Water Treatment Plant. Believe it or not, it's 175 fixtures that would be replaced through this. So we would be contracting with American Wholesale Lighting to do the work, and an on-bill financing agreement with Pacific Gas and Electric. The payback period on the energy savings is estimated to be 2.5 to 3 years. So essentially, after the payoff period of essentially 2.5 to 3 years, we would be saving $17,000 and $17,600 annually just in lighting energy costs at these facilities. I also want to mention that at Nunez, if you guys have been in there, there's some light fixtures that are in very precarious locations, and it's quite an effort to change out a CFL bulb. With the LEDs, modern, they last so long that we will probably never have to change them in our career. So this would be paid through the on-bill financing at 0%, and the total amount is $47,891. And if you have any questions, I'm here.
All right, board, bring us your best light bulb joke.
Well, I just have a very simple question. Is there any impact with our standby emergency generators with converting over, or any efficiency gained on the generators if need be?
Good question. Less load with LED, they draw less. Lighting's not really a big heavy load at our treatment plants and our pumping facilities. It's more the high horsepower motors and whatnot. But it's not really going to impact how we operate our generators and deal with power outages.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else have a question? James, I have a question. And a neighbor of mine has a warehouse, and he changed 8-foot fluorescents to 8-foot LEDs. And he was pretty excited about it. He put them all in. And about a year later, half of those bulbs are dead. The LEDs burned out and died. And it seems that at $268 per bulb, when I read the contract, it sounded like American Wholesale Lighting merely says that if these go bad, then the warranty is on the manufacturer and we have to deal with the manufacturer. And it seems like it would be really nice to have the vendor who we're paying $47,000 have a little more stake in the game to say, hey, we have experience with these LEDs and they actually last 2 years, not just, 1 year. But when I read the contract, it really looks like they're just saying, oh no, if these go bad, it's up to the manufacturer. Now we're out. Any thoughts? Is there any way to make sure that we don't get cheap LEDs?
Well, I neglected to mention that we reached out to about 5 companies. We only got 2 responsive bids. AWL was the lower bid, and we also found that they were much more attentive to certain details that we were looking at in terms of how we're casting light at the facilities and listening to our needs. These are rated in thousands of hours, and I believe they're 90,000 hour fixtures. I don't know the difference between the two bids, but AWL said these are the best lights that they put in right now. And I have not heard of LEDs catastrophically failing after a year. They're usually 20-year fixtures until they figure out another way to cast light that's more efficient than an LED.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a big concern, but I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah. I think it'd be something to continue the discussion because my neighbors spent a lot of time changing all the bulbs and they started to burn out within a couple months. So it just sort of taught me, the lesson it taught me is there's variation in who makes these LED bulbs and quality. It may be a case where we don't want the cheapest LED bulb. We want the LED that's going to have the lowest life cycle cost. And if these are 90,000 hours, then that'd be about 9 years. So that's not bad. Okay. I have faith in you, and we'll buy you a pair of those drywall stilts when they, so you can trot around on them. All right. We would need a motion if there's no other comments on LED bulbs. We'd need a motion to authorize the general manager to go buy light bulbs, and just in time for Christmas. Gonna get some red and green ones. Go ahead, Chris. You can make the motion.
Oh, okay. I will make the motion my first of the night. To spend $47,000 on light bulbs.
All right. Is that enough for a motion, or do we need Chris to read it?
$47,890.82. Award of contract for LED light fixtures at Crystal Springs Pump Station and Denison facilities.
And authorize the general manager to enter into the contract with American Wholesale Lighting, Pacific Gas and Electric.
Perfect. Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Chris. We'll need a second to get this bulb turned on.
Let me shed a light on this.
Oh,
Second.
very good. Thank you, Ken. All right, Denise is going to illuminate us all with a roll call.
Oh, no.
Director Muller,
Aye.
Director Coverdale,
I feel like a deer in headlights.
Director Michelson,
Yes.
Vice President Feldman,
Yes, and lights up.
President Reynolds.
You light me up. Let's go. All right. Well, I think we've burned that one to the end of the topic.
Yes.
All right, James, it's you again. You're going to tell us what else you want to light up.
Well, I'd like to light up the third update of the Nunes Water Treatment Plant Improvement Project. Mary, I don't know if you want to show the slides or not, but we can just talk through them. The pictures are kind of nice, though. This is the third update. In the board packet, you have the contract data. I'm pleased to say that there is a 0% of approved change orders to date.
Yay!
All right.
Eliminating certain portions.
That's good.
And covering any little minor changes. There are no significant change orders at this point. We're essentially 3 months into the project. Progress since the previous board meeting. They've installed the rebar and formwork for the new set basin walls. You can see the picture of the set basin in the board packet showing all the rebar there. They rebuilt the wooden temporary wall at the end of the filter gallery that was installed about 30 years ago. They did a great job, removed some rotting wood and put some siding up with flashing. Did a fantastic job on it. And contractor submittals, RFIs. So in the next 3 to 4 weeks, the outlook is we're going to be pouring Ranger will be pouring the said basin walls tomorrow. It's a pretty significant pour. They're going to be starting early. If anyone wants to come out, they're welcome. They'll probably be done about 10, 11 at the latest. I think they'll be done by 10. They're going to start quite early to avoid traffic and whatnot. Following that, they're going to have the basin cure for 4 weeks essentially, and then we'll do water tightness testing for the said basin. We've already seen some middles floating out about that. And then once the concrete passes and they pull the forms off, they can start moving some of the dirt that's stockpiled down by the tanks to backfill up against the backside of the said basin once we're sure it's not going to go anywhere. You see a nice picture of the scissor lift there of them doing the siding. So we've got a nice wall there, and it'll be ready to come down when we build filter 5 someday in the distant future. Schedule's good, and we're happy with Ranger's progress. We're happy with HDR's work, and Fryer and Loretta have been great support to keep everything on track and getting the communication flowing on this project. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
It looks good. Excellent. Go ahead, John.
I'm hoping this is a softball question here, James. Was there any sediment movement on the excavation site at all with that heavy rain a couple weeks ago?
No, they did really good BMPs to get ready for the storm. There's a little bit of water down at the bottom, but nothing that caused any concerns for staff. It's mostly pretty consolidated sandstone up there. So that slope is not moved at all. It's rock solid, no pun intended.
Great. I'm very happy to hear that for all of our residents. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Excellent. Very good. Well, thank you. And I appreciate, and I know this must be very disruptive to the operation of the Nunes treatment plant. So hats are off to our team through working during a live construction project. Yeah. Excellent. Mary, we have a general manager's report.
Hey, well, I'm pleased to report that Bosca is working for us and doing good things, including refunding a bond issue, 2013 a bond sale. So they had, anyway, they refunded, and they say they're saving $25 million a year $25 million with the bond issue refunding, which equates to $2.4 million a year in interest. So we will get a piece of that savings. We pay about $150,000 a year for the Bosca bond at present. So we should see some savings in the future. The other piece, President Reynolds mentioned our special meeting on October 28th, and the materials are available on the website, and including the PowerPoint presentation.
Excellent. Thank you. James, we have next, we're back to you for our monthly highlights.
Thank you. We had a new maintenance worker start. He's a nice young man who's from a local family here in town. He's been doing fantastic, and hopefully he'll be with the district for many, many years. He seems to be enjoying himself. Lead and copper custom results were mailed out. We did a nice Denniston dredging, did a little bit of a compressed schedule this year, and we had pretty good results with the rains coming afterwards in terms of the turbidity staying quite low. It really, really kind of surprised us. So we're looking at how we can better do that once we can start dredging again. Denniston did start up on the 28th of last month and was running at 400. I believe we're at 500 today. We're just managing Nunes at low flows with the Denniston water. Changed a few hydrants on El Granada Boulevard. And then we had that late October storm, and I just want to talk a little bit about staff's response. I'm very proud of the staff and how they approached preparations before we even had rain arrive. Staff got together, topped off all the tanks to make sure we were completely full in case something went wrong. Of course, all our trucks are fueled up for any emergency. So Sunday the 24th, about 3 o'clock, we lost Crystal Springs power. I was happy to see on SCADA that our tanks were absolutely full at that time. So we had plenty of time to work it out. Staff pursued PG&E. We did have a little trouble getting them out there and restoring power. We are going to be discussing that with our rep and whoever at PG&E will listen to us. We weren't real thrilled about their response, but we understand that they were handling a pretty significant storm themselves. On the 25th, on Monday, I reached out to Angela with SFPUC and very gracefully asked for some emergency water from Pillarcitos Lake. She got us water within 24 hours, and we communicated with her the status of the Crystal Springs power outage. Crystal Springs, PG&E was restored quite late on Monday evening. Tuesday morning, we fired up the station at Crystal Springs and filled up. And by the following day, we were off Pillarcitos Lake. I was very happy with the support that SF provided us. Granted, they're trying to preserve every drop they can in that lake so they can manage the stream properly. Everyone did great. I just want to emphasize that. They communicated well, everyone worked together, and it was stressful, but minimal stress. Granted, everyone was doing such a fantastic job. We also did have a little bit of stream damage in the creek. The road got washed out. We had to bring in Jim Steele and Andrina to do some repairs there, and Jim helped us with the repairs. Wasn't a whole lot. It was done in a couple of days. A little bit of riprap to fortify the road so we didn't lose the road. More details on that later. We are currently off Pillarcitos Lake. We are using the Pillarcitos wells at about 170 gallons a minute and running Crystal Springs and Denniston and balancing out those water sources. The treatment staff's doing great with that. Andrini is nearing completion of the hardscape in the front. I think we've already talked about that a little bit. Cal OES PSPS grant. Blue One Energy has confirmed the new fuel tank. We'll ship it in early November. I should hear about that very shortly. Permitting, they are working on the building department permits and fire, as well as environmental. And we're expecting those to be complete in November, and construction is likely scheduled to begin in December, January. It's not going to take more than a few weeks for them to remove the old tank and put the new one in with the fueling system. We will see. It'll be interesting to be working on that simultaneously while Ranger's up there. But Ranger's been very accommodating. There are some remaining funds from that grant, and Mary and I have already got confirmation that the grant funding will cover the first fill up of the tank, which is about $20,000 worth of fuel, and also a couple of select solar sites we're going to use the remaining funds for. So we're pleased about that. We talked about Nunez. EKI has been working on the Highway 1 crossing for Grandview. That's pretty much 100% complete. We're getting an encroachment permit with the city. I believe the Caltrans encroachment permit has arrived. Pillarcitos crossing, we've talked about that. Purissima Way, the design has started. Actually, I think we've got a draft 100% already to look at just last week. Miramanis Point Road, the design has started on that. And HDR is continuing to make progress on the tank replacement at the Half Moon Bay Tank Farm. And we're expecting a BDR in December. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Perfect. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, on the outage at CSP, I believe Mary told me that the investment that the board approved about a year ago for a siphon or a unit up in near Pillarcitos was the way that we're able to get the water from the lake into our system. Is that correct? Or did I get that wrong?
Yeah, let me just go back. SFPUC is feeding us through their siphons. They have 2 parallel siphons to go up over the spillway. And we have purchased a emergency pump in the event that their siphon, in the event that their siphon isn't working or they can't get the water up over the spillway, we can bring the pump out. And it was ready to go. And we talked about it, but since they could give us gravity water through the siphon, we didn't deem it necessary to pull out the pump, but we almost, it was definitely discussed, but we didn't think it was necessary.
Clarification, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Certainly.
How do they prime the siphon?
That's a good question. I believe they have a port where they, at the apex of it, they prime it with a pump.
Yeah, they must have some kind, I would imagine, yeah, some kind of pump to prime it. Okay. But not ours. Okay, thanks.
Not ours, exactly.
All right, Bob, go ahead.
If I may digress back to Mary's, the general manager's report, there
Sure.
was a second item on it that you didn't mention, which was the special meeting we had for the strategic water plan, local water. And she was kind enough to put something in because I had requested that at a special meeting to say that we had the meeting, that Schultz was there, he did a good job, made a good recommendation, and they're following up now, or they're going to with looking for local well improvements. Is that correct? I will also say that the Half Moon Bay Review last week had a very good article by August Howell on that meeting, which was an excellent summary and made me feel like we had really made some good moves and did some good work in that meeting. So I was very pleased with what was provided in the public domain, public outreach in that regard, just so you know, in case you haven't seen it. Yeah.
I will say I might steal a little of James's thunder, but we are very busy on some well cleaning and rehabilitation projects right now too. So you'll hear more about that probably in December.
And if I may follow up with that, Mary, I'm going to be giving you some confidential locations here in the near future also.
All right. All right, that's the end. Why don't we go to director's comments?
Thank you all.
John, I think you said you had a comment. Go ahead.
Thank you. I would like to request the board, if I may, in another day or so, that we adjourn this meeting this evening in honor of our Veterans Day, past and present.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that. All right. Any other director's comments before we adjourn for the evening?
Hope we'll have a good holiday and stay safe.
Yeah. And everybody, thank you for getting through a very busy agenda today. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thanks.
See you.
All right. We'll adjourn tonight's meeting. Thank you.
God bless.
Bye-bye.
Night, everybody.